On today's video, I'm going to show you a plugin that will let you get down and dirty with your ambient guitar recordings. It's the Denise Audio God Mode. Let's get to work. You may not realize this, but on almost all the pieces that I record here on the channel, I've got some level of distortion going on in the mix. Whether it's a very obvious distorted lead guitar tone to a very gentle saturation tone on an acoustic guitar, to a little bit more obvious distortion on a bass synth, to a less obvious distortion, maybe like a tape saturation on an entire mix. Whatever it is, I try to use distortion because I like the way it glues, so to speak, the audio together. So the basic idea of this distortion plugin is to give you three very different types of distortion, allow you to combine them in different ways, and then apply that distortion to different parts of the frequency range of your audio. Yeah, it's kind of cool. So let's see how it works here. I've got a bass synthesizer part of a recent ambient guitar piece I recorded. Let me just play this drone here for a moment. Oh yeah, I like that sound. Woo! But we're gonna make it better with the Denise God Mode. So here I've got my God Mode pulled up, and let me go ahead and engage it. And I'm going to bring the mix all the way down, and it's going to sound just like the regular track. Okay, and by the way, if you hear any crackles through this demo, it's not the fault of the God Mode. It's because I've got to run my recording software through a crazy audio thing to actually record the screen. All right, so we've got this basic sound, and I want to add some distortion to it. Well, let's take a look at what we've got available. We've got three different types of distortion: tape, warp, and buzz. So let's look at the tape first and see what we can do with it. First off, you'll see that there's a wet-dry mix, right? So if it's at 0, obviously, no distortion is being applied. There's also an interesting little graph here, and this is going to allow me to indicate which part of the frequency range I want to apply the distortion to. So let's see what we've got going on in the graph, and then I'm going to pull up some of these sliders before I bring up the mix. Let's bring it up here, and maybe about here. All right, so what I want to do at this point is bring up the mix, and let's see what we get. Ooh, yeah, that's kind of over the top, isn't it? So we've got to find a way to dial that back and get it to fit in the mix, but add that kind of depth and warmth to the synth sound. So what I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to leave the mix up, and I'm going to sweep these frequency nodes so you can hear how the tonality changes of the distortion. I think that's where I want the distortion to sit in terms of the frequency, but it's way too much. So we've got a couple of options. Once we've pushed the distortion into these frequency ranges, we can now pull back on the overall distortion level. And that's what this pull control is in the lower left-hand corner. So let's see what that's like. Okay, that's cool. So I've pulled back a lot on the distortion, but it's still way too much, isn't it? This is where our mix comes in. So let me go ahead and pull back on the mix. Oh yeah, I like that. At about that 33% range, I can hear it, but it's not driving me crazy because of, being over distorted. All right, so we've got a couple of other options here to think about. One is, I'll just mention this, I'm not going to demo it, but if you are using this plugin live, you can actually switch it into live mode up here in the upper right-hand corner, and this will give you a zero latency plugin. I might go ahead and do that for this demo since I want to avoid crackles in the audio. And then we've also got a split option, which allows us to create some stereo separation. So let me go ahead and start this track again, and I will engage split. Oh yeah, that's nice. Now let me go ahead and turn split off so you can hear the difference. Are you wearing headphones? You should be if you're not. It's back in the center more. Let's split it again. Ooh yeah, I like that. So that's pretty cool right there. And you saw that I pulled the tape distortion down a little bit. That's the overall intensity of the distortion, right? So I thought it was a little too much, but pull it back down to maybe about 50 or so, and maybe I'll bring the mix up just a bit. Here we go. Oh yeah. Now, let me turn this off and let you compare it to the undistorted signal. Yeah, I like that a lot. It's, again, you can get over the top with this plugin, but if you use it judiciously, you can add a fullness to your tone and not have people think immediately, golly day, that thing is super distorted, all right? So we do have other types of distortion though, and I want to show you those on another track. So let's flip over from the bass synth drone to an EBow guitar part. Here's what that sounds like. All right, so there is a certain level of distortion already in the signal, just via the, by the very, virtue of using the EBow to play the guitar. It introduces a lot of string vibration, which sounds a little bit like distortion. But let's go ahead and use the God mode to add more and see what we can do with it. So let me close this one out, and I'll bring up the God mode on the EBow track. And this time, we want to check out the other two types of distortion. We'll do warp and buzz. Yeah, you can probably guess what buzz is going to do, but let me go ahead and we'll play around with warp a little bit first. Now, one of the things you can hear is when I add this distortion in the warp distortion, the overall level went up. Now there's a makeup gain control to level out the volume, or the gain, I guess, of your track. So let me try to do that with the makeup control. Okay, so that's better. I brought it down about 3.5 dB, 3.7 dB. Okay, so the next thing I want to look at is adjusting the tonality of the distortion, and we do have two sets of high-pass and low-pass filters. One is pre, and that will affect the tonality of the dry signal coming into the plugin, and the other is post. And I don't want to take too much time here, but let's just look at one example of the post. And so here's your high pass filter and your low pass filter. Right now they're off essentially. So you're 20 to 20. Let's go ahead and see what we get with our low pass filter. Yeah, kind of nice. So I can bring down the tonality of the distortion and make it a lot more, kind of mellow sounding. Let me go ahead and bring that all the way back up though, so we can hear the distortion itself better. And now I want to switch from the warp to the buzz distortion and see what's going on there. I'm going to leave everything set as is, and we'll see what the difference is. Let's go ahead and reduce the pullback so it's 100% distortion all the way. Here we go. Yes, you can get out there. It's with the buzz in particular, but also with the warp and the tape. So judicious use of this plugin is a really good thing. Let me pull back again on the buzz. So we just have a little bit across the frequency spectrum, and then let's bring that mix way down here and see what we get. Let's bring this up. Yeah. All right. I like that a lot. I brought up some high frequency distortion, or distortion being applied to the higher frequencies, and it kind of gives it a sheen, if you will, across the sound of the EBow guitar. All right, let's add the bass synthesizer in and see what we get with both of those tracks together with the Denise plugin. Can you hear how the distortion is kind of really gluing everything together? And what I mean by that is it's kind of smearing the tonality. Now, that sounds like a bad thing, doesn't it? But depending on what you're trying to accomplish, it can be a very good thing to really kind of blend the entire sound of your mix together. That's cool. Now, keep in mind, I'm exaggerating this for this demo, right? I would pull it back even more for a final mix. But let's go ahead and check out using the God mode finally on the master bus. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off the God mode on my individual tracks. And again, here's what they sound like. Let's say I want to add a little bit of that glue in my track overall. Well, I can just put the Denise God mode on my master track, and this is the stereo out track in Logic Pro, and then I can use tape distortion, just bring it up a little bit, and maybe kind of bring up the mids a little bit, not a lot, right? And let's hear what this sounds like. So I've got it turned off now, right? And let me play this, and then I'm going to turn on the God mode and adjust a little bit. Off. Okay, now if you're not wearing headphones, you're probably not going to be able to hear how the signal was kind of brought forward a little bit and blended together in a mellow, kind of subtle sort of way. That's what saturation in a real tape machine really does for a music track when it's mixed down, actually when each individual track is recorded and then mixed down in the analog world. Now, I'm not trying to say this sounds like a tape machine. What I am trying to say, however, is that it's got some of the same goals in mind in terms of providing a gentle level of saturation to blend the mix together. So there you have it, a quick demo of the Denise Audio God Mode. I think it's a really good distortion plugin, and it's very versatile, in particular with the ability to apply distortion across the frequency range of your audio. Do you use distortion in your audio recordings? If so, drop a comment. Let me know how you use it, and if you've got any specific plugins you love to use, drop that down in the comment below. Also, let me know what you think about the God Mode and if you think you might give it a try. Got a playlist here of other plugins that I've demoed here on the channel. Please subscribe, and I will see all of you on the next video.